to take a stand and save our future.
Like we all got shot, we all got shot.
Throwing up our hands, don't let them shoot us.
Cause we all we got, we all we got. God ain't put us on the earth to get murdered, it's murder. God ain't put us on the earth to get murdered, it's murder. Don't point your weapons at me.
Hi, this is Roxy Easton from the Restore Black America Foundation. And as you know, we like to have on guest experts who can give us some expertise and insight on these 6 areas of our community that we focus on, which are, of course, culture, economics, health, family, politics, and spirituality. One of the things that I wanted to do today is definitely talk about the area of restoring black politics. I do think that getting knowledgeable on the political scene is something that we need more of in our community. So I want to get Brother Maj on today. Now, Maj Toure is the founder of an organization called Black Guns Matter. Black Guns Matter is a community outreach organization that specializes in training members of the urban community on the Second Amendment and how to properly exercise the Second Amendment rights, which I think is something that we definitely need to go into because it's something that we need to become more knowledgeable of. So I want this to be a very real and very raw and very uncut interview. So without further ado, Brother Maj, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Great. I'm well, man. Thanks for being on the line today. But for those of you that don't know anything about you, could you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself as far as your background, your upbringing, and how you got into doing the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. I'm a regular North Philly person. My background is just like everybody else in every hood across America. You know, didn't grow up rich, anything like that. Just seeing both sides of the game. And, and when you live in an urban environment, you see, the same cases. Everybody catches the same cases. Some of your friends going for the summer fighting the case. Traveling around and then, growing and then starting to do hip-hop music, seeing that that's something that was similar in a lot of different hoods across the country. I saw, as, I get older, you start to see, like, hey, man, there's an answer to this. So, we basically did a license to carry drive. It was super packed to capacity, and so many people came from other places asking, yo, man, you should do this in Jersey. You should do this, blah, blah, blah. So we started, that's how, in essence, that's how Black Guns Matter was, created. Then we started on a 13-city tour. Now we're in the middle of a 50-state tour, just going to every hood across America, informing the people about their Second Amendment rights, their human rights via the Second Amendment, how to be safe. We link them up with reputable instructors, trainers, gun rangers, just community people in general in their community and help them foster that relationship. So that's what we are as Black Guns Matter, and, that's pretty much my individual and collective background.
That's really interesting. Now, let me ask you this. We're talking a lot about the Second Amendment. There's probably going to be a lot of people listening to this that actually don't know what some of these laws are and things of that nature. So would you mind going into what exactly is the Second Amendment?
The Second Amendment is the ability for the American people, it was created by the Founding Fathers, a document that lists the Bill of Rights, the Bill of Human Rights that you have, which are not government given. They are rights that you have by being born. And the Founding Fathers of this country decided to make sure that they put down some documents that explain to people for future generations that you have an inalienable right to defend yourself with the best means possible at that time, and still now it being a firearm. With that being the case, they also made it where people understood that this is something that you're born with. You have the right, the natural right to defend yourself. And that Second Amendment also is a manner of us checking, a potential tyrannical government. So, and that's exactly how America came to be. We were under, when I say we, I wasn't there, obviously, but, this country that we all are citizens of now, we were in an oppressive situation, taxation without representation, just no democratic principles, and the republic was being very oppressive to the people. The Founding Fathers said, no, we're not going to do that, and we out, basically. And so knowing that that was a tyrannical situation that they came from, they made sure that they, in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, made sure that they were setting the precedent that the people had the right to defend themselves from a tyrannical government. That does not mean the state is the only people should have firearms. That means the people should have a well-regulated militia, meaning well-regulated in the sense of moving properly. The people have the right to have, to keep and bear arms to defend themselves. And that's what the Second Amendment is. The reason why that's not really shared readily in urban areas is because we've downgraded to a point where people have accepted government control over their lives. They're accepting the trinkets because they don't want to do the work, or they've just been conditioned to believe that you're supposed to do, you know, what the government says as opposed to the government doing what you're supposed to say. So, you know, they take civics out of the schools. They make firearms seem like bad things, negative, something horrible. You either got to be law enforcement or you got to be the bad guy or girl, and that's just not true. So it's our job to inform the people in the areas where that foolishness runs the most rampant, because that's where the concentration of the ignorance is promoted, and to change their hearts and their minds about that so we can create hood patriots. We want people, patriots are people that are willing to defend their countrymen, they hood, they people, from the government. And that's exactly what the Founding Fathers wrote. That's exactly what a lot of people in urban areas need to be on, because we're the people that's getting brutalized the most by, you know, the prison industrial complex, draconian laws, just police brutality, you know, and these are serious things that, you know, the Founding Fathers were talking about. So that's why this is very important. The Second Amendment is the amendment that allows you to protect all of your other human rights, because if you don't have a way to protect your rights, you don't really have any. So it's very important for us to make sure that message is spread in the hood.
No, that was a very intelligent answer. Now, you said so many key things in there that I kind of want to get into. One of the first things you said, though, you mentioned about being an oppressed people and how even oppressed people still have the right and should exercise their human rights. So with that being said, I want to ask you, why do you think that the Second Amendment right is so important for members of the black community, since we're speaking about individuals who've been oppressed?
Yeah, well, it's important for the black community because, you know, one, we've been conditioned to believe that we you know, to be very, you know, pessimistic or depressed. That's how you control people. You make them depressed. If confident people can't be controlled, you know. So I think that the machine of, you know, prisons, the machine of exploitation, the machine of that is based on people not knowing their rightful place, that they have human natural rights, you know, whether they're black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. Control is control. Now, the reason why it's extremely important for people of color or people of African descent in America is because nowhere else in human history have people suffered the extent and torture that black people in America have. Period. The Jew. I mean, it's like if it was the you know, the torture Olympics, it would be African Americans, you know, and African people first, then maybe the Jews. You know, so not to compare pains, but the reality of it is we were into a system that, you know, robbed us of our culture for a very long time, of our culture, our heritage, our human rights. So more damn near than anybody else, not that someone else has more of a right to their human right, but more so than anyone else that the target has been on their back. No one more than us. So because of that reason, you know, gun control in and of itself is created because of right after emancipation. These are things and systems that were created directly after, you know, people of African descent created their own liberation, you know. So they came up with these rules. Now the problem as it erodes is now all American citizens are under that scope. Maybe not to the same extent or the center of that scope, but they're all in it because, again, control and power is power. It's like the crack epidemic. Initially, it was dropped off in the hood, but then it started to spread. Now it's America's problem. Now control through racist gun control laws is still America's problem, because now it's not just stopping, you know, just at the black community. Now it's, okay, we want to make sure that everybody is enslaved, because the small amount of people that have a lot of the power want to make sure they can control the means of production, the means of, you know, and the way that you even think, you know. So more so than anybody, why that's extremely important is because of our history in America. We have great history and we have, you know, a horrific history. So because of that, it's very important for us to stand firm on that Second Amendment and not just go, well, that happened then, it couldn't happen again. I'm pretty sure at other points in human history, people thought the same thing and they were proved wrong.
You're listening to an exclusive interview found on RestoreBlackAmerica.org. That's RestoreBlackAmerica.org.
You know, that's true, and it's funny you said that, because it's one of the things I mentioned in my book. A lot of times they use the black community as the test market to roll things out on a smaller scale, because we're a smaller group of people and we're ununified. They test it out on us before they roll it out to the rest of the population. So I think that's one of kind of similar to the point that you were saying. Now, something else that I want to get into, and
wait, hold on, real quick. I want to jump in there real quick. I don't believe that we're a small amount of the population. I don't believe that. I'm very skeptical, and I'm a conspiracy theorist to a degree. I do not believe census forms at all. I don't believe them. I've literally been across the country. I have literally been across the country, and there are people of color, people of African descent everywhere. So I don't really even accept that concept of being the minority. I think when you start looking at it from that perspective as well as a global perspective, I think that people of color are the majority, you know. And I want to bring that point up, not to attack, you know, lesser melaninated beings at all. You know, I believe we all come from Africa at a certain point. However, I want to make sure that people, you know, aren't identifying themselves with a weaker concept that somebody presented there for them to believe. The root word of minority means minor, means smaller, means weaker. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe we come from strong soil. I believe that we built America, people of color, native people, yellow people, white people, Asian people. I believe that we built this place. And I believe because of that, we are an American majority. And I want people to kind of shift their perspective a little bit on that. But I had to just throw that in there. My apologies for cutting.
No, I think that's a really interesting perspective. I mean, you're right. Melanated people are definitely the majority on the planet. I know Dr. Francis Cress Welston talked a lot about that as well. So, no, that's an interesting perspective. I'm glad you brought that up. But what I did want to go into, because you said something else that was really interesting, and I want to jump back to that. For those of us that do know a little bit about the history of the Second Amendment, as you alluded to earlier, you know, it was said that it was given individuals have the right to bear arms to be able to protect themselves, especially when it comes to tyrannical governments, things of that nature. So my question to you is, what does that look like in 2017, and especially what does that look like for black people? So, for example, I mean, if a group of cops, let's say, come into a neighborhood and start harassing people, it's not like we're going to come out blasting with our firearms. So do you think that the original intention of the Second Amendment still holds true today, especially as it relates to black people?
Yes. I think that part of the trick is to make people think, listen, you have a human right to defend yourself, and that human right is for all citizens. Now, if someone wants to tell me a legal faction or a political organization or president or whoever, you know, wants to tell me that, hey, what was I going to say? Wants to tell me that, you know, you're not a citizen. Okay, then come out and say that, because if I'm not a citizen, these taxes that I'm paying, we're going to break bread on that too. You know what I mean? Right. So with that being the case, even when people say, oh, when they originally wrote that, they didn't mean, I don't care what they meant. I'm dealing with it right now. Right now, what that means is I'm a citizen. I'm a human. Born in America, and I'm going to exercise my right to defend myself. So if a law enforcement officer is doing something, this is a state Supreme Court decision. This isn't even Maj just saying this. In a situation where an officer is unduly trying to kill you, you have the right to defend your life, period. I think people get caught up in, well, you know, that's not for us, and I don't believe any of that. We're going to have a system of conduct and a system of protocol. I think what happens is people don't follow the system in the sense of, hey, I'm going to deal with you professionally and respectfully. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to do my due diligence and get out of this situation, you know, positively. I think what happens is people start responding off of their emotions because they know that they're being handled an improper way, but then they give room for the person to somewhat justify it, you know. So in this scenario, yes, if someone is trying to take my life, a law enforcement officer that's doing their job, not being oppressive or brutalizing people, a law enforcement officer that's doing their job isn't going to be taking your life unless you're threatening his or hers. And they're well within their rights to defend their lives because they're citizens of America too. You know, so I play the objective game. I don't play this, oh, just because he's the officer, he has to be the bad person. No. Did you pull a gun out on him? Okay, if he shot the shit out of you, then that's what was supposed to happen, period. Just like I would, you know. So, but if you're abusing the position, and if you pull your gun out on somebody as an officer, your form of employment does not give you justification to kill people. You're actually held to a higher standard of service because you're here to serve the people, you know. So, yes, I do think that those things are relevant for right now, and I think more people in urban environments should have that understanding. They should have respect for the office. They should have respect for the position. So should those officers. They should have respect for the office and their position. And their position, they're definitely supposed to make it home every night to their family just like anybody else. But that is contingent upon how you're handling the people. And that's a delicate balance there. We're not doing things. You don't get the job just to abuse the privilege. You're not fit to serve in that position. And if you're to an extent where you think service is trying to kill people, then whatever happened to you happened to you. That does not give you a license to kill people. That does not give the citizens a license to kill you just because you're doing a job. And that's that delicate balance and that code of conduct and that protocol that will be upheld by all Black Guns Matter members at any time. We are not one of those groups that say, just because you got on a uniform, you don't deserve to make it home because you're a pig or you're this. No, I have too many friends and family that are law enforcement that will give you shirt off their back. And they get, scrutinized for doing a job when other people aren't being strong citizens. So it's a very delicate balance there, and I want to make sure that we balance that, because objectivity and accountability cut both ways, and we got to make sure we maintain that standard.
All right. Yeah, I hear that. That makes sense. And we kind of talking about this whole police brutality thing. It kind of leads me into my next question, too. When it relates to, let's say, the image of Black people, we know that from what we've seen with some of the police shootings that, the image of the Black man, let's say, is very scary. And therefore, as a result, people respond differently when we seem to do certain things. So, like, let's just throw out an example. Let's say a white man walks into, a Home Depot or some store and he has a gun on his hip. Nobody really thinks anything. They just think that he's, as they say, a red-blooded American exercising his Second Amendment right. Now, let's say a lot of times, a Black man walks in the store or somewhere, he has a gun on his hip. If he doesn't have a police uniform on or something, people might get spooked or say he's a gangster or whatever and may end up, getting killed on the spot. All sorts of things happen. Do you think that Black people should openly carrying guns is a good idea where it's allowed, where something like that is allowed, or do you think it brings more trouble our way? And I'm asking you that question to figure out how do we handle the dynamic of perception when it comes to Black people and guns.
Well, I'll say this. We're working to change the perception based on the work that we're doing. That's the first step first. The other thing is, I personally don't believe in open carry. I personally don't believe anybody should see your firearm until it's time for it. If you're at the range, you get some instruction, things like that, cool. But to me, I believe in concealed is concealed. With that being the case, I don't think that open carry, for me, is a good way to go. For me, until we start normalizing firearms, maybe in certain states like Texas, there's a cultural paradigm that says guns are okay, citizens have guns, now that's not a race thing for me. That's more of a, what does the environment say about that, and how is that going to be perceived? Because to some people, perception is reality. And now, if someone's perception is wrong and they act negatively and illegally and unlawfully because of that perception, then they should be locked under the jail. They should, have to be deal with the consequences.
That makes sense. And that kind of brings me to kind of the next point, too, because we're talking about race and guns and things of that matter. So, like, for example, I'm sure we know someone, and you may know some people that might carry a gun on him, and maybe he don't even have any beef or any issues like that, but he's riding around with a gun that's not registered, and you're like, dog, do you have any felonies or anything? You're riding around with a hot-ass pistol that you bought from somebody that, you probably bought out of the, the project that has all kind of, whatever on it, and it's something, it kind of reminds me, and you had a quote on your website, something to the effect of, I don't think there's a Black gun culture or a white gun culture. There's more of an informed gun culture or an ignorant gun culture. Do you think that because of our ignorance of the law that Black people have created a culture of living outside of the law, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment? And if so, what do you think that we could do to sort of change that cultural paradigm?
Well, there's no such thing as a registration for a firearm. That's a myth. What you have to do is follow local laws. And we actually fight against. They're trying to get registration for firearms, and that's my right to privacy, my right to all of those other different things. So no, we resist that, because every time that you buy a firearm legally, you fill out a 4473, which is a form that's kept by that gun store, by that gun whatever, that FFL dealer, to keep on file for up to 22 years. So if at any given moment, if the ATF comes in and says, hey, we need to know about this gun, they have records of it. So that's as far as you go as far as the registration goes. But as far as, like, because we've been on the ignorant part of the law or the unawareness or, the lack of civic understanding, does that mean that we created a monster to a certain extent? Yes. But it doesn't mean we created the monster. We perpetuated the monster. Because we didn't go up. That was deliberate. That was deliberate to make sure that information is not put in the hood. That was on purpose. That wasn't an accident, and it was facilitated, and it was maintained. And now after it's like training wheels. Then after okay, now we got you on a certain amount of ignorance. Now you're going to perpetuate it yourself. So that's where it goes from individual accountability to systemic racism or systemic institutionalized wrongdoing or power grabbing, whatever way you want to call it. Now, does that mean that we're absolved of our actions? Absolutely not. But you can't handle one without the other. So when you say gun control, all of it came from emancipation because we did not, as the American public at that time, did not want black people to have firearms to defend themselves. That is a fact. That's not me making it up. Now, when you and whatever was done to make sure that you didn't understand the laws of the land and all of those other different things, after a certain point, when you get a smartphone, you can learn anything. So at a certain point is now you can understand how the institution was structured, but you could break that with a little bit of knowledge yourself and a full battery charge on your phone. Oh. That's not really hard. Now the next part is now implementing that. Now that comes to the second part of your question. How do we change that? One, you do what we're doing at Black Guns Matter. If you want to donate to help what we're doing, so be it. You go and you inform the community and let them know. You change the minds and the hearts of those people. You instill confidence. You link them with those trainers. You go to the range 3-4 times a week. Instead of you going to the club throwing money away, tossing the money literally that you do not have, you evaluate it this way. Is it more important for me to learn how to defend myself legally, spiritually, financially, physically, with firearms and without? Is that more important than me throwing money away and spending 200% over what the value of this bottle is at the club? Now, when you look at it from that perspective, which is more important, your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness, or fake stunting for Saturday night? So that's where you look at and understand the trap that's been set there, and that's how you break that trap. You got to know the law so well in your locality. You got to know how to handle negative police officers so well. You got to follow through when you interact with those negative police officers. You got to sue those people. You got to check the guys in your community that's doing the wrong thing. You got to say it. Right. Hey, man, this is our community, man. It ain't cool. Just like we want law enforcement to check itself, we got to check ourselves. You have to be so objective about knowledge, about training, about firearms, about your community. That's how you break that stigma. That level of ignorance cannot exist if collectively people, especially in urban areas, regardless of their race, collectively we could destroy all of this in less than 10 years if we all get on the same page. And it's a holistic attack.
I agree.
That's how we solve it.
I agree. That's interesting. Now, you brought up the idea, you mentioned something there about being sort of caught in a trap, and I want to talk about that. A lot of brothers in our community, particularly the black males, have had challenges, let's say, when it comes to the law, which is part of the reason why we're doing this interview, so we can put out some more education on that issue. But let's say, for example, we already discussed how exercising your Second Amendment right properly can help you stay out of legal trouble. But let's say someone's already been to prison or jail or what have you. What options do they have as far as their Second Amendment is concerned? Does that change once they've been in the system?
Yes. If you have a felon, and this is something that we should work to change, but if you're a convicted felon, even for a light felony, right, you have forfeited federally. You have forfeited your rights to your Second Amendment based on this as it stands now. And to me, that's trash, because to me, if I go to jail, there are no guns in jail, so I can't have a gun in jail. I'm here to do the time for the thing that I did. Why are we stopping people from having their human rights, violating their human rights after they went to jail to do the time? That's the purpose of jail, to you submit your time to society, and then hopefully you get rehabbed and you get back out in society. Why are we taking people's right to vote away? Locally, even. Why are we taking their right to vote away? Why are we taking their right to defend themselves away? These are expressions of human rights. So that part I call BS on that. But as it presently stands, yes, there are certain misdemeanors and felonies that stop you from being able to, legally possess a firearm, especially violent, possession charges and things like that.
Okay, so just to be clear, so if somebody's been to jail or what have you, they essentially just need to stay away from guns. There are no loopholes at that point, or is there a certain time period? to where that?
No, there's no statute of limitations on that. The only thing that you can potentially do is get what's called a governor's pardon, and that takes years. But that means the governor has to go like, yeah, of your state has to go, yeah, that's cool. He's not. He's okay. Or she's okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But to me, that's something that you got to be aware of the rules, and some of them are unjust. But you got to know them to not get caught up in them, so then you can overturn them. That's the holistic approach. But yes, if you're a convicted felon, you definitely. And again, you know how people say, well, that was 10 years ago. There is no statute of limitations. There is none.
So wow, so you can never have a gun. If you've ever been to jail with a felony, it's, as far as that's concerned, you can never pretty much own a firearm again. Is that correct?
Right. Wow. I mean, again, depending on the felony, there's varying degrees of the situation. Because I want to be very clear. Because even I can't absolutely say that because somebody might get a governor's pardon. And they'll go, well, I had a felony and the governor was my cousin, so I got the pardon. And that changes, so because I try not to speak in such hard absolutes. So yeah, right. there are ways that it has happened before, but those are very rare, but generally speaking, if you got a cocaine charge, you're done.
Wow. No, that's really interesting. I just wanted to bring. No, go ahead.
To me, I believe that's game because again, I did my debt to society. I paid my debt. So now I don't have the right to defend myself. No, I disagree with that. And that's something that we got to work on reevaluating. Because, okay, and then people will say, well, what if they do it again? Well, will you throw their ass in jail again? Period.
Right.
For more
time. Pay the time again. Right.
Yeah, you did this thing. Right. You go to jail. Okay, cool. Now you come home. All right, get your act together. Don't do that again. Oh, you did it again? Okay, we gave you 4 years. This time we'll give you 5. Bam. It can be very simple. But to convolute it and make it very, confusing or seemingly confusing is the way that they keep people, like, oh, you got to do it this way. No, you don't. That's like when people say, well, open carry doesn't work, or in constitutional carry states, you shouldn't have them because people are just going to be shooting each other. There are 12 or 13, I think it's 12. It's 13. 12 or 13 constitutional carry states, which means you can have your gun on you. You can conceal it, not conceal it, whatever, as long as you're not a prohibited person. You don't need a special permit, These states have very low gun crimes, very low, because everyone has a respect and an understanding of the culture of firearms, and an armed society is a polite society. So we get past these myths. We get past these, it's going to be like the Wild Wild West. That's game. And people repeat that without even looking at the stats, knowing that there are places, Missouri was the last one. I think it was Missouri, the latest one. The point is, you're looking at these stats and saying, hey, man, it's going to be crazy. The places where there is a respect for people's human rights is where there's less crime. The places like Chicago where there's every gun law in the book is people getting murdered by the hundreds, literally.
Right.
So you see the wool that's been pulled over your eyes to keep you unempowered. You know who said the same thing? Hitler. He de-armed the population. And we see how that turned out. I've read Mein Kampf 3 times. That's his biography. Mein Kampf means my struggle. And yeah, man, this isn't a game. Human history is littered with governmental takeovers of the people, and they're always started with de-arming the population and telling them it's in the name of their safety. It's in the name, we're doing this for you. There's not a special type of human. That army guy or that military guy or that police officer is not a different human. He doesn't have 8 eyes and 6 arms. It's not a different human. So the people that will be, the people that say, okay, these people can have guns, they're the same humans as you and I. They don't have special X-ray vision. So there's nothing different. And that's the game, to convince people that somehow because someone has a uniform, that somehow they should have a greater right than you, the people. And that's game. And that's why we got to change the mentality of the hood. We got to get them on that. Then that leads you into a path of better financial responsibility. Because then when you start shooting, then you start going, man, ammo ain't cheap. Man, maybe I shouldn't go to the club. Maybe I should. I got to knock my bills
maybe
off.
Maybe it wasn't that serious. Right.
Yeah. And you start reevaluating. Yeah. You go, damn, man, I'm spending a lot of money, on this. Maybe I should redirect some of them funds. It starts to shape you. You're training on a holistic level, and you become a better citizen. That's why those guys, man, for all of the contradictions that the founding fathers of this country had, and they had some serious contradictions, serious ones. With that being the case, they knew what they were talking about when they wrote these documents. I can't front on them. I would love to, because I'm like, you guys still was letting slavery pop off. But I would love to. But for this part, for that part, they wrote something that was amazing. It was amazing, and most people don't even read it. They don't even read it because they don't identify themselves with that, and they should, because you're here. Use it. Everything is for you to use, not abuse. To use, and that's where we at. That's why we don't focus so much on just the firearm. We focus on, conflict resolution, de-escalation, good citizenship. All of that is all-encompassing, So it's again, I know I said it 3 times. It's a very holistic approach to what we do at Black Guns Matter.
No, that's great to hear you say that, because I love the fact that you work on the mentalities and the minds of certain people, because you're right, it is a certain responsibility that also comes with it. And if you have the idea of more of a level head and conflict resolution, then you're less likely to do something, something crazy. And you actually even answered what was going to be my next question, because I was going to ask you that. You alluded to it a little bit already, but you do have some people that have the mentality that if we have more guns in the community, that it's only going to make it worse. But from your perspective, that's totally not true.
Not even just my perspective. The numbers show it. The numbers show it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a perfect example. In Philadelphia, for 2016, we did more work in Philly in our organization. We had more classes than anywhere else in the country. We did back-to-back. Every time I got back to Philly, let me do a Philly class real quick. In 2016, when the stats came out, Philadelphia's crime rate was as low as it's been since 1979.
Wow.
And that means I'm educating more. Every time I go to the license to carry unit, it's packed in there. And we have something to do with that. And people are learning and they're changing their mentality. Even dudes that's from the street, they come to the classes. I don't judge. Hey, man, if anything, you might still be touching the firearm, because I personally believe that you did your time, you come home, you should be able to. But, okay, it's not legal, but I ain't going to judge you. What I am going to say is, listen, man, you're going to do what you do. At least come to the class and let us show you how to secure that firearm properly. Or let me link you up with a trainer that can do the same thing. And it ain't got to be a real gun. They can show you on blue plastic pistols. And whatever you do is what you do. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help. So that's why a lot of the hood guys, and when they come to the classes, they hear us talk, they see the information, they start to make changes. See, the Founding Fathers were technically criminals. Technically, they were felons. I mean, when we tossed these words around, these judgmental words, the Founding Fathers of this place were, whether you're a patriot or a turncoat, is a matter of who wins. It's a matter of who wins. So those guys probably would have got hung if Britain won. But they had firearms, so they could defend what they believed in. And they had a passion and an ideology. So why is that different than my homie who was just trying to sell weed? He getting football numbers because he sold 50 pounds of weed, flowers, dried up flowers. So now he gets more time than people that got, for murder. So now my friend doesn't get to come home. So we got to get outside of these and this is what we're talking about. We're talking about, shifting paradigms and all of that. So yeah, absolutely do we inform people and not judge them and give them the information and things of that nature. It's necessary. It's necessary for that change to happen. And then getting those guys and those women on a positive note. They're warriors and patriots for our community now. All American citizens community. You don't want my friends, if man, listen, you would rather deal with me than my friends are monsters. They're monsters. And it's like, okay, let's they're still going to be monsters, but let them be good monsters. Let them be the cookie monster. You know what I mean? Don't let them turn them into something else.
Right. That's interesting. So I want to ask you this last question before we conclude. Now, you mentioned, people getting educated, creating a different culture, things of that nature. Now, we know that there are certain organizations out there that, claim to be out there, I guess, to protect our Second Amendment rights and things of that nature. However, we do notice a lot of times, let's say a lot of those organizations, a lot of times black people specifically, don't feel like those organizations, let's say, cater to us. Like, for example, I know when a lot of black people hear, let's say, the NRA, they think, rednecks, rebel flags, right-wing Republicans, things of that nature. Do you think it's wise for black people in particular to get involved with these types of organizations? Or do you
I'm a member of the NRA.
To have organizations ourselves? Okay.
I'm a member of the NRA, and I'm a founder of Black Guns Matter. You can do both. you're gonna find areas where you would agree and disagree with everything. You're going to. That's just what's gonna happen.
Right.
So because of that, the things that I disagreed with, or I thought that I could do a better job at, it ain't even got to be something that I disagreed with. I just thought I could do a better job. So we created an organization that deals with some things that the NRA can't or isn't dealing with. That's what we did. That doesn't mean maybe there's a possibility that they don't know how to. I can see that all of the time. I see people that they like, yo, I don't know how to. I don't want to be. It's awkward for them. I want. The couple that brought us out to Phoenix, Danny and Cheryl Todd. They own a gun store right outside of Phoenix, and it's called Avondale, which is the quote unquote hood part of Phoenix, right? Their gun store is azfirearms.com, right? Salt of the earth people. They're white. They didn't even know that many black people and Spanish people were in, or black people at least, were in their neck of the woods. We filled their entire, situation, their store, their auction house. We filled it with people. And so many people left with an understanding of the law, an understanding of safety, and an understanding of this is a place that you can come learn and buy guns. Great salt-of-the-earth people. But one of the things that they told us was, we don't know how to approach the demographic without looking like we're just trying to exploit it and or without offending someone that we're not trying to offend. They just did not know how to. We helped them there, and we're making ourselves open to other organizations, people, stores, shops, companies that want to understand how to bridge that gap without being offensive. Because I know these people are good people. They're not going, yeah, let's just extract all of the money from the blacks. That's not their agenda. They're saying, hey, This is something that I want to say to this demographic, but I do not. There's a cultural difference, So I think the NRA sometimes falls into that, And the other side, anti-gun people have a vested interest in making sure people in urban demographics are not pro-gun. So they paint the NRA, which is the largest Second Amendment organization, they paint them as these rednecks. I was just down there. I be around them all of the time, man. And I know what a racist is. Every word, nigga, 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 nigga. I'm nigger. Don't look at me, nigga. I see those guys. I'm used to those guys. All right, cool. But to falsely assume that because this guy's white, automatically he's got guns. Automatically he's a racist. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. And we all say we like Dr. King, but what about the content of a man's character? Since we like Dr. King so much. So These are the things that we got to strive to make sure that we're balanced on. Otherwise, we dealing in extremes, and that's the way of the Sith. That's not the way of the Jedi. We Jedis. We walk the balance path. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that's dope. And I do have one last question before I get to. I want to have you kind of let people know a little bit more about your organization. As you know, these laws sometimes could be kind of complicated when people are trying to understand it. Let's say someone listening to this or what have you, and they want to get more educated on the law. Where would they actually go? Where do they start to say, hey, where do I do my research? I mean, obviously we all have Google, but are there anything in particular that, someone should be looking into, some kind of registry, some kind of books, or is there something in particular that you can maybe recommend to folks?
Yeah, they can come to our website. It's an amazing website. It's the best website ever. It's huge. It's officialblackgunsmatter.com. We have laws state to state, so they can click on and see what the laws are for their state. They can see where our next town is. They can come out to our events. Our events are for free. Also, on that, if they want to donate to our GoFundMe, if they want to buy some merchandise to support what we're doing, they can. So we're going to keep them in-house. We will link you if you're in a different state than us. We will link you with the trainer from your state. We will link you with a gun range in your town if there is one available, or the nearest one to it. So anybody that wants to help out or learn, please, shoot over to our website, officialblackgunsmatter.com.
Okay, most definitely. Well, there you have it. I do want to encourage everybody to definitely go check out the website, officialblackgunsmatter.com. Please reach out to Brother Mach. Thank you so much for doing this interview. Again, I think that this is going to be a really powerful interview because it's a lot of information that people need, and this kind of stuff can help get us on the right path and also create a culture of responsibility and legal understanding as well. So I really appreciate you for being on the line. Is there any last thing that you'd like to say to the individuals, the audience, or anyone listening before we get off the line today?
Yeah, if you guys are hearing what we're saying and if you support what we're doing, please take a minute, go to our GoFundMe page. You can get it from the website as well, but it's gofundme.com/BlackGunsMatter. donate 10, 20, 50, 500, 5,000 bucks, whatever. You know,
That's right.
the work that we're doing, we want to make sure that the classes remain free, open to all, and your donations allow us to do that. No different than, you know, if you listen to classical radio stations, they do the like every quarterly drives or stuff like that. That is how we're able to get the information to you, to continue to tell the truth, because if we took a huge check from an organization, they would have some say. That's just how business goes. They would have some say on the things we talk about and the things that we don't talk about. Right now, we're free to address, you know, we can criticize the NRA or compliment the NRA because we didn't take a check from a competing organization. You know, we can critique it all and be objective about it all because we're independent. So in order for us to maintain that independence, we, in all honesty, need your money. That's just what it is. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm not getting rich off of it. We've already hit 20 cities with your donations, with your support for the T-shirts, the coffee mugs, the holsters, the women's tank tops, the temporary tattoos, all of the Black Guns Matter merchandise. But, you know, if you want to donate straight up and don't want it, you might not want a hoodie, you know. But if you want to donate, you can hit our GoFundMe page. Again, that's GoFundMe.com/Black Guns Matter. Or you can, you know, get some merchandise off the website. But please, if anything that I've said to you today you're moved by, please do so.
Thank you very much. All right, Brother Mars. Well, thank you so much for this interview. Like I said, I definitely think a lot of people's lives are going to be changed. You definitely gave some great information. And, again, we look forward to discussing with you again. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Brother.
Thank you.
All right,
I'll talk to you soon. All right, peace.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Time to take a stand and save our future. Like we all got shot, we all got shot. Throwing up our hands, don't let them shoot us. Cause we all we got, we all we got. God ain't put us on the earth to get murdered. It's murder. God ain't put us on the earth to get murdered. It's murder. Don't point your weapons at me.
Stand up.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Roxy Easton, founder of the Restore Black America Foundation and author of the Restore Black America book. And you know how this whole thing came about, man, is real interesting. Years ago, I had a friend of mine introduce me to something called the Willie Lynch letter. And if you don't know what that is, it was actually a transcript of a speech given at a slave owners convention. And it talked about how to control black people, not through force, but through psychology, talking about putting old against young, light skin against dark skin, male against female. And it pretty much outlines all of the problems that we have today. So when I read this plan and I said, if this is a plan to destroy black people, if I reverse engineer this, could we create a plan to rebuild the black community? Hence the term Restore Black America. So this book is actually broken down into a 6-step action plan that outlines a restoration process for the next 100 years. Those 6 steps are culture, economics, family, politics, health, and spirituality. And the way the whole premise goes is that this letter was actually written in 1712, and it said that if you actually put this plan in place, that you'll be able to control black people for the next 300 years. 2012 was actually the end of that 300-year mark. When I wrote this book, it came out in 2013, which is the first year after that 300-year mark. I founded the Restore Black America Foundation as a way to actually implement this 100-year plan. Not only to give people the information, but the actual tools in order to make a change. So basically what I've done is put this book together in a 100-year plan for the black community. Restore Black America is more than just a book. It's more than just a foundation. It's an entire movement sweeping across the black community. So be sure to stay tuned for our documentary as we outline the 6-step action plan for restoring Black America and taking our culture back. Holla.